Explosive confrontation on Capitol Hill. Rep. Crockett goes head-to-head with FBI Director Cash Patel, calling him the least qualified FBI director in history. From mishandled domestic threats to right-wing extremism, she's exposing the failures that put communities at risk. This isn't just politics, it's about safety, trust, and accountability. Stay tuned.
Gentleman yields back. The lady from Texas is recognized.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that
That's
you are
false.
the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go
false.
through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you are already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe. I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Ken Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there. Even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I mean, I'll respond. Cash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, Deputy Director of National Intelligence with the National Security Council, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI Director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I think you're witnessing some auditions.
You won't believe the tension in this hearing. Rep. Crockett, known for her fearless questioning, went straight at FBI Director Cash Patel, leaving no room for polite political posturing. She didn't just read talking points, she laid out a case, pointing to his appointment, his record, and his performance. And she didn't mince words, calling him the least qualified FBI director in history. And she's not wrong to question leadership, especially when the stakes involve public safety and the credibility of one of the country's most important institutions. Patel, who came from a career outside the FBI and served in several government roles, including as Deputy Director of National Intelligence and Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, was appointed by former President Trump. While credentials on paper might look impressive, Crockett's argument went deeper than a resume. She challenged his ability to protect the public, particularly against the very real and rising threat of white supremacist violence. She pointed out that while some politicians might feel safe, she and many others do not. She invoked chilling real-world examples, like lawmakers and their families receiving death threats simply for voting against a political candidate, or communities targeted while worshiping or studying, demonstrating that the threat is immediate, personal, and racialized. Crockett didn't stop at highlighting the danger. She called out operational failures. She spoke about how cases tied to Trump's hand-picked officials were mishandled, how FBI resources are being redirected away from the agency's core mission, and how qualified personnel are being let go. Even successes were undercut by public relations stunts, she argued, posts, dinners, and media appearances that make it seem like action is being taken when, in reality, the results came from parents stepping forward or confessions online, not FBI investigative brilliance. She repeatedly stressed a key point that the general public might not always hear. The vast majority of domestic threats come from right-wing extremism, yet the FBI's public stance has often failed to acknowledge this. She used clear examples from colleagues who faced life-threatening harassment, underscoring the human cost of institutional failure. And she pressed on the issue of staffing, asking how the FBI can promise safety when, under Patel's leadership, he admitted it would take 14 years to fully staff the agency to do its job properly. Patel responded by outlining his credentials and defending his leadership, citing statistics showing improvements over previous administrations. But the tension in the room, the palpable frustration from Crockett, and the detailed recounting of ongoing threats left a clear impression. The conversation wasn't just about credentials. It was about trust, competence, and the ability of the FBI to protect communities that are too often left vulnerable. What this hearing really teaches us is that oversight matters, and that the questions being asked are not abstract. They have life-or-death consequences for communities across the country. It also underscores the gap between appearances and action, reminding us that leadership isn't just about titles or resume points, it's about measurable results, accountability, and protecting every citizen equally. As you watch this clash unfold, think about what it means for your safety, your community, and the broader role of law enforcement in our democracy. These hearings are not just political theater. They are a mirror showing us what happens when power, politics, and public safety collide. If you want to stay informed and understand the real impact behind these headline clashes, make sure to subscribe to Left Lens and turn on notifications. This isn't just news. You deserve context, clarity, and analysis that cuts through the noise.